put your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
Here comes the jam, getting down with the truth, the only way he knows how to. Girl, Lord, what's his name? We call him the Chief. You're damn right, he's gonna get that sucker. Yo, we track down the truth, you know what a track down the truth, you know it, what do they call him? We call him the Chief. You're damn right we do.
I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefield. You can find us every Tuesday on YouTube's Pop Culture Minefield or on Rumble. Now, just remember, if you're going to follow us on YouTube, you gotta subscribe, and if you're going to follow us on Rumble, you have to hit the follow button. We appreciate your support, and so be sure to subscribe or follow and like the show. Additionally, I did want to tell you about my other show a little bit. Last week I had somebody come on my show, and we did an analysis of 28 counties around the country who had progressive prosecutors funded by George Soros. And we did an analysis just how far right did those counties swing towards Trump in comparison to other counties. And it was stunning. It was a huge shift, which is a big message to Democratic leaders. Hey, crime is an issue. People are upset. And I just wanted to see it because it's obvious that when people are upset about crime, they tend to vote for the other party. But the shift was pretty dramatic in deep blue states, deep blue counties. And it was an interesting analysis by Roman Gaschke and the Roman Recap. Now, tomorrow I'm going to have somebody on who wrote an article, and it was green empathy and human apathy. So it's just the policies of California, and I'm going to probably get in a little bit of what's going on regarding the policies that contributed to the fires here in California. And I think the writer got it right. We have so much empathy for the environment that we lost focus that really we should be focusing on empathy for humans and balance our empathy for the environment. We shouldn't be putting people in the poorhouse to pay for their utility bills and their homeowners insurance simply for political correctness and for the environment. We need to balance those. I think California's lost its way. And my guest tomorrow on Briefing with the Chief at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Rumble's KJ's Rumble channel. You can hear me discuss with that author regarding that. So that will be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that conversation. Now, I got to do my plug for the mission. They are doing a fundraiser right now, and they do need some money. One of the problems that's going on with a lot of these faith-based organizations that help the homeless is, one, they don't get government money, but also they've been kind of tagged with all the other failures of the homeless industrial complex, is a word that gets used quite a bit. So a lot of the government funding that hasn't really had the impact. In fact, we spent a lot of money and got nowhere with it. The Los Angeles Mission is not part of it. So I encourage you to go to losangelesmission.org and make a donation today. They do wraparound services 6 months to 12 months, and their goal is ultimately to get people off the street in Skid Row and return them to society as functioning members of society, right? So it's really a good program. I've actually met some of the people who've gone through their program, and they talk about their turnaround, both from the spiritual standpoint, but just how happy that they were able to gain the services of the mission. And, it cost them nothing, right? It cost them nothing other than a commitment to change, which is actually pretty hard for somebody who's addicted. The last guy I talked to had been drinking for about 15 years. He'd been arrested for DUI, and he said the drinking was impacting his life. He looked for a solution. He found the mission, And after 6 months of treatment, he hasn't had a drink and he's reintegrating back into society. So they do a good job. So I appreciate if you go to losangelesmission.org and make a donation today. Now, also, you can follow me on X at LASD Jordan. I do comment on a wide variety of things. All the stuff going on in Elon Musk is such an interesting thing. I am kind of a political nerd. I got my degree in political science. The president does have broad authority in the executive branch to do exactly what he's doing. It is not unusual when somebody takes over from another executive to do a deep dive in what spending is going on to make sure there are no abuses and that spending priorities are consistent with what the executive wants. That's actually what Trump is doing. That's not unusual. We see it a lot more at the local level. You don't normally see the big deep dive like they're doing at the federal level because everybody just kind of wants to go along to get along. Well, Trump tried that in his first term, and now he ain't worried about getting along. He's just doing what he should do. Just get a deep dive in it or see what's going on. So a lot of interesting stuff going on. But today's movie, I wanted to do something that was not necessarily a true story, but based upon a true story about serial killers. It's a pretty dark movie, and a little bit slow. This is CLOVEHITCH Killer. It was released in 2018. It's an American coming-of-age thriller movie. So it's about a serial killer, and it is based upon a real serial killer, or at least it takes inspiration. But before we get into that, let's bring on our guest. We'll go in order of rank that they retired at. Former Lieutenant John Baylis. He's been on the show before. He's coming to us from parts unknown. He is a California refugee, hiding from the California tax man. How you doing, John?
Oh, good. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And next is a retired Sergeant Danny Coon. He's been on before. He's been on both of my shows. He's been on Briefing with the Chief, where we talked about post-traumatic stress and a variety of other issues, police suicide. But we've also the very first show he did for us here was The Onion Field, which has a lot of related themes to what I just talked about. But welcome back to the show, Danny.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it being here. 2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row. Yeah. I have kind of a cadre of folks, and I kind of reach out trying to mix and match movies here and there. And everybody who comes on says they have fun doing it. So I think I'm just going to keep doing it as long as we're all having fun. Johnny will be walking up to the computer on his walker, and we'll still be doing it. Right? Okay, so this movie, it's let's see, it's starring Dylan McDermott, who is written by Christopher Ford. It stars Dylan McDermott, Charles Plummer, Samantha Mathis, and Madison Beatty. Now, Dylan McDermott, he played a really good creepy guy, right, in this movie. What do you think, John? Good.
Very, very well done. Very, very calm, very manipulative, very psychopathic, and just, I mean, he fit the definition of psychopath to a T.
Yeah, I've seen him in a lot of his movies, and I like him as an actor. But
he's a great actor.
He played a really good. Sometimes you see these A-listers, and I don't know if I guess he could be considered an A-lister when they play something that's a little bit out of their lane. They do a really good job, and he did a good job, Danny. Right? He played a really good creep.
Yeah, he was creepy. Yeah, he played that part to the T, and he goes back and forth from creepiness to weirdo-ness to to being normal.
Well, I think you got to thank the writers for that too. Those writers, oof.
Yeah, it was written well, and to play a part like that, you go back and Pat had mentioned these A-listers. A lot of them will study that role or study their role for months or years and stuff like in the movie Reagan. I can't think of his name right now.
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid, yeah. In that movie, he spent 2 years studying Reagan's movements and everything. And if you remember Vincent D'Onofrio or whatever from
D'Onofrio,
from Law and Order, he would only do a show every other week because it would take him 2 weeks to get into character for whatever show he was on.
Yeah,
so wow. And this guy here, he did that too. He got into that role really good.
Yeah, what's the method acting? There's that old stuff. Did you ever? I know Johnny B worked West Hollywood, and just outside of West Hollywood, they have I think it's Lee Adler Studios or Lee Strasberg Studios. I can't remember which
Lee
one.
Strasberg.
And they taught the method acting, and every now and then you'd see those guys out on the street doing their lines. And I actually went and gave a presentation there. I did a 20-minute little speech. And I think, I don't get really intimidated. I wasn't intimidated, but I thought, well, how's this going to go? I'm doing a speech in front of a bunch of actors. This is what they do for a living, right? And I had them laughing because I was telling stories about jamming up actors. Because where the studio was at is also where they had a lot of prostitution going on and where they had a lot of dope dealing going on. You know, talk about Johnny B down at Highland and Santa Monica. And so you jam some of these kids up every now and then. They're just actors playing a part, right? So they enjoyed the stories. But I think he did a fantastic job. I do think the kid did a good job too. I think that's Tyler is his name in the Charlie Plummer. I think he did a pretty good job. And it's weird, but hey, this story is actually, it is not a true story, but it does take inspiration from a real life serial killer, BTK. That's Dennis Rader. I think I got a picture of him. Martine, I don't know if you're ready with showing that picture of him. There he is. The BTK Waves trial admits to 10 killings. It was interesting. I watched this guy when he did his allocution. And he just told the story like, he's just walking through the park. Yeah, I did this. Yeah, I did that. And you could actually see him enjoying telling it, which is part of the. So and this BTK is bind. Let's see. Wait a minute.
Bind, torture, kill.
Bind, torture, kill. That's it. And so that's what. There's so many themes, like he was a Boy Scout leader guy. He was a church leader guy. This is the real killer, Dennis Rader. And you see that with the character development. And he had a family, and his family was stunned. They had no idea. And in fact, he was, let's see, it was Iowa. And this, so Wichita, Kansas. So this, I think it was Wichita is where Dennis Rader was active, kind of very religious place. So it was, and he had a job where he got to move around. Dennis Rader, his job was, he was code enforcement, believe it or not.
Well, he was at the end, he was a dog catcher, but he worked for a while during the slayings for ADT security, putting alarms in people's houses that were afraid of him. And he ended up being a supervisor with ADT for a while. People getting alarms put in to keep them safe, and he knows where they are.
Yep. Oof.
Yeah. So this guy didn't really have anything in his background. BTK didn't. You don't get hired as a security job. I'm sure they did a background check there, and the city did a background check when he did some kind of code enforcement. But these guys cancel. I think this is what they would call classically an organized serial killer, very organized serial killer, right? Because he plans everything out, and you kind of see that in the movie. And BTK was an organized one versus a disorganized, right?
Right.
All right. Let's roll. What? How's the other critters? I'm not humans and anything. Never heard of this movie. Yeah, Tom, it's on Netflix, and John, you found it on
Prime Video.
Amazon? Prime Video.
It was like $4.
Yeah, it was $3.17 to rent it on Prime.
Yeah, I will say it's a very dark film, and it's kind of slow. I think the best parts about the movie, I think, are McDermott's acting. I would think, and but every step, every rock the boy eventually turns over as he begins to investigate his dad. It just gets worse.
Yeah. I never knew what BTK stood for because I never looked it up because I didn't care about any of that stuff. But for this, I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, blind torture. I was thinking bacon, taters. I don't know. Couldn't figure out what the hell it was. Then I see bind, torture, kill, which is the exact same stuff that McDermott does in this movie. And I didn't know what the fuck, pardon my language, I didn't know what the hell a clove hitch was. Now I know. And it's a knot that being in the Boy Scouts that he was, teaching and how to tie different knots and stuff.
Yeah, and knots were part of the BTA case too. BTK case. Let's put that one out there. Well, let's roll the first clip because it also is consistent. So they do a memorial service every year in this town, I guess. And here we go. Here are all the possible victims of the serial killer. And there's the families. And of course, who's there? He's there with his Boy Scout troop doing the memorial kind of thing with the flag and all that stuff, and everybody's praying. And one of the things that got BTK was, he enjoyed the attention. He wasn't getting attention, but this guy got a chance to get attention every year. He got to think, this is me. I'm doing all this. I've controlled this. And that's a big part of serial killers. Particularly serial killers are into binding and torturing before they kill, right? So the Clovehitch Killer. So that's part of this, right? I mean, just here, I think that's him right there. He's teaching the kids how to hold the flag and that kind of stuff. And it's being in charge is also an important deal for controlling organized serial killers. So yeah, John. So he enjoyed doing these memorial services every year, right?
I think it personally, I think that it got him off. That's how he was satisfied when he hadn't killed for a while, because they said it was like 10 years they hadn't seen any murders. But he's getting off because he's there and he's seeing, this is my work. He's a dark narcissist. He's a dark narcissist that wants to see what's going on. And he sees all these people grieving, and he's a pathological liar, which a psychopath is, and he's the scoutmaster. To him, I think that's what got him off. That satisfied him.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's a break between, there's a long break between his last killing and when he eventually tries to kill later on in this movie. And that's consistent with BTK too. They stop because they're afraid of getting caught, but they have to look for other ways to show their dominance. And so you see that with him being a church leader, and in this case being the scout leader, but also reliving those events every time they have a memorial service. What do you think, Danny, about this and the need to relive the?
That's right on what he and where it ties in similar to what BTK did is he went 10 years without anything, and during those 10 years the cases started to go cold. So at the end, even though he was staying in the limelight by doing the Boy Scout stuff and everything like that, he was losing attention from the media and from all the other outlets. And so that's why BTK moved into going back out to try to commit another murder. And this ties in just like the true story is he was his falling out of the limelight, and he needed to get back in it to get whatever psycho crazy thing he was into.
Yeah. Didn't BTK send a lot of letters though?
Yeah,
BTK years that he stopped.
BTK sent letters taunting the police, and one of the things he did was he sent a floppy disk.
Yeah.
to a TV station, and in there they were able to, the computer geeks were able to get some micro data out of there that had his first name and the church that he went to on it.
No shit. Wow.
That's eventually how he got caught.
Wow.
He's dumb. You know what though? You always wonder, do they want to get caught because they want the notoriety too? That's part of it. Well, I remember watching him doing his elocution. He just seemed to enjoy the whole thing. I don't know if you watched that. So,
exactly.
But he's, there's other people like him. I mean, there's the Green River Killer. There's all these kinds where they're controlling, and that's a big part of controlling the women. It isn't necessarily about the sex they have; it's the control they have over their victims, and
power.
But yeah, power. And I think, and even BTK, he killed a family of 4. I think he killed the husband, the wife, whatever, preteen girl, and then a little boy. So he's just a very dangerous guy. And like I said, Dennis McDermott does a great job being the weirdo serial killer in this movie. And he kind of gives the scouts a bad name here too. So Danny, you said that some family members of hers, and you don't have to throw them out there, knew Dennis Rader, right? Does that and said he was a little odd because what?
Yeah, my aunt on my mom's side went to high school with him. I was born in Wichita, however, raised in California, and she knew him. She thought he was always a little strange, but more so, his head was always in his Bible, just reading his Bible. And then he would do weird stuff, but always just reading scripture. And it probably went in one eye and out the other and didn't really connect between anything in between, because he certainly didn't live the lifestyle.
Right.
Overcompensating for dark thoughts. It was interesting. The last segment of the shot there, they show him and his son pulling over so they could save a turtle that's crossing the road, right? Which is, obviously the Clovehitch Killer, and you kind of figure out fairly quickly that he's probably the guy, right? He's the killer. So there's not a mystery in my mind. There wasn't a mystery that he would be the killer, but he stops and he has this persona of being a really good guy, and he works on that, and I think that includes stopping to save the turtle. That's what that was kind of about.
Yep, I agree.
You agree? Yeah. So I mean,
save the turtle, but kill the raccoon.
Right. Yeah. Well, and part of it's the only audience for that was his son, right? Saving the turtle.
Right.
So this mask is on for his family too. I mean, later on in the movie, the wife says, "Well, your dad, has some dark things, but he controls that stuff." But clearly, she doesn't know everything, but she knows that he has some dark feelings, right? And that's the whole, hey, buddy, hey, this. It's just this kind of overemphasized pretend, right? And you see that with the whole turtle scene. That's kind of how I saw the whole turtle scene. Hey, let's roll the next scene. She's here again, and this is it's how do you build characters to tell the story, right? And in this case, they have this young girl who's watching from across the street, doesn't attend church, but she's always across the street from church, and these guys are talking about her. And there's the guy that it's funny when they have an argument, she says, "Oh, just come out of the closet," this guy with the curly hair. And it was a pretty funny scene. But these guys are friends, and they're talking about her. Of course, rumors, they don't know. This is supposed to be a small town. I would think everybody knows what's going on.
In fact, there were rumors about the son, because remember he took out that one girl, and little blonde girl, and really cute, and she sees a torn photo of a bound with the ball in her mouth and everything, and her hands tied behind her back, and she goes and tells everybody. And everybody in the school now thinks he's a weirdo, and he's trying to tell him, "Hey, that wasn't mine. He's
a perv."
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, she's across the street, and they, of course, making up because she's not all that forthcoming. They kind of make up stories about her. Let's get her. This actress is Samantha Mathis. This is Cindy, right? That's who and they just make up the stories about her, which is, I guess, that's typical with teenagers. And she did the whole football team, and her mom, whatever, left family because she's all this goofy stuff. And in reality, we find out later that her mom was murdered by the Clovehitch Killer. So typical small town bull stuff. Now I do the one son, I mean the son of Dylan McDermott, whatever. He seems to be a little more reasonable than the other kid, right? And since you kind of grew up in a religious, this was a little, I went to Catholic schools, but I didn't have this whole overt,
you weren't in the Bible Belt.
Yeah, I wasn't in the Bible. It just wasn't as intense. So talk about that, since you grew up talk about the intensity of the Bible Belt and how it's played out in this movie.
The easiest way I could describe Wichita is there's a church on just about every corner, and then across the street from the churches are strip clubs, but that's different.
Yeah.
My mom grew up a Mennonite. My dad grew up Catholic. My dad, after he got out of the Navy, he went to a Quaker school, which was kind of weird. But
wow.
When we moved to California, we got affiliated. I was the first affiliated with the Baptist church as a kid, because that's what they did with us when we were kids. And then when I got into Boy Scouts, our Boy Scout troop, like most Boy Scout troops in the 70s, were based out of some type of church, either the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church. There's probably a couple of synagogues that had Boy Scout troops also that I don't remember. And the troop I belonged to was a Methodist church, and everybody that was in the troop went to church. And we did a lot of the same activities as was described in the movie, just doing things together and doing things church related. You know, we'd go on campouts. We'd always have a time for reverence on Sunday mornings before we packed up and left. I worked at a summer camp one year, and they had a chaplain he was an explorer from one of the local churches, and he had spent the time there or the summer there with us, and it was kind of interesting, kind of fun.
Well, but was there intensity where the kids? Yeah, I would think. Well, obviously we didn't have social media back then, right? You know, so you were back, and they were still probably writing on tablets when you were doing this. So it is.
We were carving into the stone wall.
Yeah. Was there for the teenagers? Were they, you know, as religious as projected in this movie? Because they're very faithful or pious, I guess is the word I'm looking for. The kids, surprisingly.
And the younger kids, the 11 to 14-year-old, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
The older kids, because like I became an Eagle Scout at age 12. The older kids that were in from 14 to 18 before they aged out, they were more into girls and drugs and drinking and going out and doing other stuff than spending a lot of time hanging out with mom and dad at church.
Yeah, going to the church groups.
Yeah.
So our guy here, he goes on a date here, and he's going to violate some 10 commandments with this girl, right? He's trying to anyways. And she finds a picture of somebody who's in a porn bondage picture, I guess, in the truck that they're in. And this is the fallout. She sees it. She immediately wants to go home because she feels uncomfortable with our character here, Tyler, thinking that he's a pervert. But she does what is now common, John, as she puts it on social media, or this is text, so this doesn't appear like it's full social media yet. They don't really say the context of the time on this, or at least I didn't see it.
Right.
But she starts telling everybody, and now he's getting tagged as the perv, right? This does happen, this cyberbullying, right?
Sure.
And it has a dramatic impact, and certainly has an impact on him. He feels isolated. Even his best friends are turning their back on him. And his only solace is our little redhead, the redhead gal here, who, you know, and I have to tell you, I don't know if you've seen the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
No.
Where it's kind of a play on the Sharon Tate murders.
Right.
She plays one of the crazy ladies in that movie.
Oh, she does.
Yes, you have to watch the movie, and she ends up getting offed by one of the main characters, Brad Pitt. But yeah, she was a pretty good crazy person in that movie too. You know, one of Charlie's disciples. So, but you know, so this does happen, right? You know, bullying over the internet, bullying using text, and shaming people and naming people, and that's pretty hard on a teen. I imagine it would be hard on a teen from Wichita or something like that, a big Bible Belt town. What do you think, John? That does happen, right?
Oh, I agree. And also, some of that, what you're talking about, reminds me of Footloose. It was a great movie. It was a dance movie, but you had the girl's father, who was the preacher and pastor. They forbid dancing, you know, and the kids are always going to the barn and popping a few brews, and then they start dancing. So that's the epitome of that Bible Belt when they get older.
Yeah, Danny and I were talking about that before he came on. He apparently is a Reformed Baptist himself. We're drinking and dancing. They're allowed in the Reformed Baptist Church, right, Danny?
Yeah, drinking, dancing, drinking Baptist. You're killing me.
Yeah, but so very, very, what do they call it? A sexually repressed town, right? Which is probably plays into a little of this, right? That our bad guy is sexually repressed. Maybe if he lived in a city where he gets to, what we had. All right, come on, Johnny. We were West Hollywood, right? And do you remember when Ad Vice came in, or it was Downtown Vice? That's Ad Vice's LAPD. That they came in and they closed down a dominatrix shop.
Oh yeah, the one
remember
down
that?
by the station.
Yeah,
across the street and down a block. Yeah.
Yeah, you knew exactly where it was at, right?
Yeah. Oh.
Wait, another interesting story, just because we worked in, it was basically sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And so some of the guys, some of the audience here who are familiar with Hollywood, we worked in West Hollywood, and you got the famed Sunset Strip, and you got the Boys Town kind of strip where all the they make the love connection there, right? But there's a lot of if you wanted, I don't want to. If you had some unusual fetishes, you could find it there in West Hollywood, right?
Yep.
And in fact, we had a massage parlor that our Vice, the downtown Vice, took out, and it ended up being owned by the dean of the business school of Cal State Northridge. Remember that?
Yep.
That was, so he owned it, and he's teaching classes on business, I don't know how you do that. Okay. How do you audit that business, right? All right. How many,
exactly.
How many customers came in the door? What'd you do?
Exactly.
How do you audit that business?
His overhead was pretty low, though.
So I wonder if this serial killer had a more permissive environment that he was living in. Would he have gone down this, right? Who knows, right?
I think
Probably.
he would have, because a lot of these serial killers, regular sex, it's not enough for them. They need to have something. Look, Danny, you worked homicide. You remember, was it Bittaker? Yeah, I can't think of the two guys.
Yeah, Bittaker and Norris is toolbox killers. Yeah, so
that abducted the girls and tortured them and recorded it all on tape recordings and hearing them scream. That's how they got off. That was kind of for them.
Kind of depicted that in the movie where the one night he has the love scene with his wife in bed and everything, and he either can't get it up or can't perform or doing something, and that's just normal everyday loving, and so he needed something really weird and kinky, and
I agree.
He needed to put on his high heels and his whatever.
Oh yeah, when he did that, I was like, whoa.
But you know what, Dennis
BTK did that too.
He did that stuff, and you see as he's, I guess we'll get to that scene, but as he's flipping his Polaroids down, he can't. It's not good enough for him yet, which is why he's got to go on and start. He just can't get aroused, and so he's got to go do it. And so let's get into the shed. Your dad has his hobbies, and so Mom knew that Dad had some dark secrets, but she obviously didn't know he was a killer. And so let's roll the scene, the shed, Martine. And so he begins. Our kid. Charles gets a little. He's talking to folks and talking to the little girl there. And I think Martine, you got that scene, the shed. Where you at? Let's see here. Oh, got to go away for a little bit. Okay, well, all right. So anyway, so he begins to suspect his dad because the picture was found in his truck. He's being called the perv. The kid is. The kid knows that's not my picture. There's only one other person that drives this. My dad, right? He sees his dad going into the shed. He's assuming there's something going on, and so he decides to go in there and look, and of course, Dad's got his little stash of material that helps him sexually, right? And it's this bondage stuff, and then he's got some other stuff that are cryptic, that indicates that maybe one of them is the name of a gal that he later finds out is a possible victim, right? But he doesn't find that out till later. But he does find out that Dad isn't exactly, roll the scene from the shed, Martine. Dad isn't exactly what he appears to be. Now, there's a couple things. So this is a coming of age movie, John. So first of all, you find out your dad is a weirdo, right? And you're trying to deal with your own sexuality, what's right, and this is what you find out about your dad. So you kind of got, you've been taught this is wrong because you're living in the Bible Belt, right? You've been taught that, sex before marriage is bad, right? And all this stuff. And now you got your dad who's allegedly a pillar of the community, enjoying bondage material. What do you think, John? Kind of shocking for a...
Oh, yeah. He's got so many things going on with his hormones are raging. He has the one girlfriend. She saw the picture. Now he's the pervert, and and he's got the religious side. And he wants to have a girlfriend, and everything's spinning in his head. And then when he sees those pictures, he's just like, "What the fuck?" He doesn't know what to think.
Right.
That's about the only way you can put it, as WTF.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. This would be shocking. So Danny, you're in you grew up in a Bible type town. Suddenly you find out that, the guy you look up at, your hero, your dad, is into this, what would be considered deviant in any Bible, you know what I mean? In the Bible
society.
Any society, but even more so there, right? Well, I don't know, John. I mean, I worked West Hollywood, and it was like anything goes there, right?
Well, but, that's different. That's
but in Kansas,
that area,
in Wichita, it wouldn't be anything goes. So you see it. This is coming of age film, and you're dealing with your own sexuality, hoping to, I guess, cap your first feel eventually, and now you see this. And it seems, at one, it's completely abnormal. It's a fetish that one you know nothing about. You're being accused of it, and it's your dad. What do you think?
That's just wild. You couldn't see. I got to think here. We'll put him about Tyler right around 13. No, he had a driver's license, so right around 16 years old.
16, 17, yeah.
So that was a long time ago for me. but it was definitely. Old, buddy. We're not young and debonair like you, Pat. So we're old.
Yeah, you guys are older than me. But it is my birthday today, though. So
happy birthday! It would.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thank you.
It would definitely.
You hit 60 yet?
Yeah, I ain't gonna put that on public. So.
You hit 60 yet? You fart.
But all right, so. All right, but this is a coming of age film, and he finds out, one not only is just regular old sexual contact, the lanes for sex are completely different in some people's worlds, and that is his dad. So his dad is considered to be a sexual deviant. He knows it. He's being accused of it, and I would say that this would be traumatic for the kid. And I think
he's got nobody to talk to.
He's got nobody to talk to.
Not until he meets the redhead, but even then, it's hard to talk to her until they finally get around to it.
Right. And then, of course, he's trying to do research. He's trying to do research, and he does some research, and he figures out that Nora, the name on one of the pictures, Norma Devlin, is one of the victims of the CLOVEHITCH killer, right? And so he's making these connections, and of course, he doesn't want to believe it. And I think I could believe that in the movie. You don't want to believe it. You're not my dad. This is just some oddity, right? Some happenstance. But it's not. But he's doing this digging, and of course his mom catches him on the computer, and she thinks he's looking at porn or something like that, which is so I'm trying to think back. Okay, so what was that would have been probably the 90s, where everybody had maybe one computer in the house. We put ours in the main room because I had kids who were on the computer all the time, and I wanted to see what they're doing. And then he shuts it down right away because she doesn't want the mom to see that he's researching this killer, and she thinks it's porn, and she ironically has the dad talk to him about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, think about this: you're coming of age, and now your dad, who is this deviant and possibly a killer, is going to talk to you about sex. Just pretty interesting plot. I guess we don't know whether any of this is true, because we don't know if this is BTK. I want to say BLT, John. You got me
exactly.
Right. So we don't know if but it's just interesting. So now the serial killer is going to have a talk with his son about morality and sex. And we all know that he's the killer now, right? All right, he's the guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he's going to have a conversation with his son about the morality of sex and the normal needs of a man. And I think he gives him a drink, like a soda or something like that, which only a cherry cola, which is just between us. Here's my little
Yeah,
talk about that.
Can't have sugar. Who knows?
It probably had sugar in it. What do you think, Danny? Kind of, you're the son, and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm getting this conversation from my dad, who I think is into bondage and might actually be a killer. I mean, this is traumatizing event, right?
And Tyler couldn't bring any of that up because he's still, probably shocked and awe about what he saw and seeing. And your dad's sitting there talking about you can kiss him, but you can't do this, and go, what the hell?
Yeah, that's freaky. Can you imagine?
I never got the significance at the time of the cherry cola.
I think it wasn't allowed in the house.
Yeah, but it was allowed in the garage. That's what I got too. I thought it was a beer at first, and I go, oh, it's a cherry cola. So maybe.
So did I until he said it was cola. Yeah.
Remember, this is a guy that's going to say, well, we can't have sugar in the house because it's bad for you, but we can have it in the shed, because I don't know, but that's, I don't know, John, what do you think? You're, this teenage kid, his dad is talking about the morality of sex, and the kid knows his dad is whacked. There's something wrong with him.
Imagine how freaky that is. He'd already found that one picture underneath the floorboards.
Yeah.
And all that other stuff. And now dad's giving and he thought his dad was going to chew his ass out for going in the shed, but he mentions the shed, but he puts it off like, hey, I know what you're doing, and then like later on when he says, oh, so you got a girlfriend? That's my buddy, I'd freak. That was freaky.
He's going, my son, you got a girlfriend.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, and it's,
you know how he knew, that Tyler had gone into the shed, or that someone had been into the shed.
Yeah, he had it pushed on 0.
Yeah, he had that.
It wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
You notice that the lock or the combo dial was changed.
And somebody violated his space. You'd have to think that a controlling guy like this was controlling in a lot of ways in his family too, right? Obviously, stay out of the shed. Don't do this. Don't do that.
I'll bet you the wife never went in the shed either. Nobody.
No, I don't think she did. She gave him his space, so to speak, and
but the interesting part there is, how did he know the combination to the shed?
Yeah, that one was too. That was
unless through scouting, he may have had to go in there every once in a while and get stuff for his dad. But it was right. I was thinking about that. He's not allowed in there.
They had it listed. Maybe they wrote it down somewhere in case of emergencies, but he got through there. But yeah, you're right. I didn't think of that.
Well, he did have tools in there, so obviously, so yeah, you're right, Danny. He probably did have to go and get tools occasionally to work on stuff, and yeah, I just thought it was interesting that he finds all this stuff. He goes online. They think he's getting called a perv. They think he's looking at porn. And then his dad, who's this oddball serial killer, sexual sadist, is going to give him talk about morality and sex and reasonableness, and and you're the son, right? And you're at an age where you can think critically, right? And you're thinking, this is crazy. Is this true, right? Is this true? And I think that's, and the interesting thing is as we talked about, Dennis McDermott, he plays it off pretty good, right? And it's interesting if you try to put yourself in his mind, and we'll let you, John, do this because what is Dennis McDermott thinking? Oh, God, he knows something. What does he know? At this point, I'm not sure if he's thinking that, but he knows somebody been in there.
I think he's, on one hand, he's giving him the speech, but on the other hand, he's trying to find out how much his son really knows. He says, I know you came in the shed, and then he sloughed it off to something else. He wanted to see the look on his son's face.
Right.
When he realized, hey, dad knows. So he's thinking, well, if I call him on it, he's not going to come in here again. But he kept coming in there.
Yeah,
he was fishing.
He was fishing. And he of course moved all the stuff, right? He moved everything. Ultimately our bad guy did. Dylan
just about everything.
Basement or something. I can't remember.
Not quite everything.
He
left one. Everything. Yeah, he left one little. Apparently he missed his diagram. He left one little thing.
Yeah, how are you going to find out who he is if he doesn't leave something?
Right. Yeah. So hey, that's what is that? That's Hollywood clue, right? They leave a Hollywood
exactly.
Clue, right?
That's Hollywood dramatics.
Hollywood clue. That they leave one of the most critical things there. They take all the other stuff, but they leave that critical piece there, right? But what he is now talking to his friend, his little redheaded friend, and he's got to go back and get the evidence. So they go back together to the shed. Let's roll the scene evidence, and of course this is.
Honey.
He thinks he has a girlfriend, and I think this is funny too when he has. She has dinner over his house, right? But they go in the shed, and they eventually do find the diagram, right? And they're looking for evidence, and she's like, no way, he's not. She's thinking, and I think rightly so. I mean, how do you, the boy that you just met, who's finally talking to you, whether you had something for him or not, these two at the school. She knows there's a killer out there, but the guy right in front of her in the Boy Scout uniform, that's the church leader. She's dismissing that right away. And but they do go and look for it, and then they end up finding no. But one of the fun things was she goes over there for dinner, right? And I thought it was funny, and because one of the funniest parts of the movie I thought was when they asked her what church she goes to, and she says she's going to be a Wiccan. and we know what, a lot of people don't really. Yeah, I remember jamming guys up in West Hollywood. There was Wiccans all over that place in West Hollywood. So what they carry the little, John, you remember they carry little bags with rocks or something, and earthy stuff in it, and well, that's my religion. Did you ever run across this, Danny?
No, I have no clue what it is.
Yeah, Hollywood. It's they would say they're Wicca, which is it's kind of a it's a religion of kind of a religion that believes in the earth. It's not, they don't really have a god. It's just believe in the earth and that kind of, I don't know it. I just know that they exist. And I thought it was hilarious that she's at dinner with the family and she says she's Wiccan, right? She doesn't go to church anymore, but she's Wiccan. And then the mom is trying to like, how do I play that off? And I like her because she portrays a great sense of humor. Our redhead here, I'm going to call her the redhead because it's easy. And finally the son says, Mom, she's joking, right? She's joking. But here he is. They've gone into the shed and they find the diagram. And this is also, I don't want to say it's typical of a sexual sadist to want to keep, but there are really harrowing stories of, serial killers and sexual sadists who kidnap women for long periods of time. That it's I don't want to say it's usual because it's not usual, but it does happen enough that those stories are out there and they get out there. And this wasn't really the MO of BTK where he would kidnap women, but clearly, as you look at this, it looks like he's built a place where he can control his victim and keep them for long periods of time. And this is the Hollywood clue they leave, John, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. It does happen, right?
Yeah, it does. Boy, imagine what he's going through in his head when he sees that diagram. Like, what the? His head's spinning already. That made it even 10 times worse.
When you look here, and then he's got the wheel of torture on it. He's going, oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so here they like I said, they're Bible thumpers. They're in Bible thumper town, and this is what he's finding out. And it can't be anybody else. It's clearly his dad. There's no other explanation, right? At least he gets another explanation later in the movie. But
right, and that's when his dad does the manipulation even worse.
He does the manipulation, and but he thinks he knows, and you could tell when he looks at it, he knows where this is at, right? He knows. Because he's lived there. It's not when you live in, I had 5 siblings. You ain't keeping secrets in a house with a bunch of, doesn't matter who you are. They're gonna, right? I mean, the kids are all over the place. What are you doing, Dad? What are you doing, Mom? They're going to be asking questions and checking stuff out because that's what kids do, right?
Oh yeah.
So he immediately knew. That crawl space was nearby, right? And ultimately he checks it out. But a TV clue there, Danny, right? I mean, you wish you'd have had some of those when you were working the streets, right? That where it just lands in your hands and you go, oh yeah, here it is. This pulls it all together, right?
It happens every once in a while, but not as obvious as that was.
Well, that's why, and it's fun doing the cop movies because it's like they got to solve this within 2 hours, and when you do it on TV, you got to solve it sometimes in a half hour or an hour. And so I always like. Do you ever listen to the Naval Investigative Series? What do they call those?
NCIS.
NCIS, yeah. And they're okay. Let's do facial recognition and. There it is right there. Let's do, let's run DNA. There it is right there. And there's no way. I mean, God, when you submit something for DNA, you're like, okay, that'll be 6 weeks. Right?
Yeah.
And $6,000.
If they even do yours. Well, because I remember I was trying to solve some rapes in West Hollywood, but I didn't have a suspect. I just thought it was a serial thing, and so I wanted them to do some backlog rape cases, just do the DNA that we had to see if I could link these. They wouldn't do it. I had to have a suspect identified so that they can compare against them instead of doing all of them to see if there were commonalities, like do we have 1 or 2 serial rapists who were working the strip, which I believed was going on. They wouldn't do it unless I had a suspect identified. So it's really, so when you see them on TV, oh yeah, we'll do it. Oh, look, it's here's the path. Oh, it's this guy. And of course, the other thing they don't understand about DNA and fingerprints, if the person's never been arrested,
good luck.
Yeah, they're not going to be in your database. So these are, we got to have these movie clues, these Hollywood clues to solve.
Well, you remember when LAPD and us, I think, got in trouble in the press because they hadn't done the rape kits for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
They were just sitting there. Well, we're short of personnel. You know what I mean? I remember that had to be like late 80s, early 90s.
Let's see, when was I doing this? It was early 2000s. Yeah. And, and I know what it costs money. So, and they would say, if you're just doing analysis for theory, then they're not going to do that. But if you,
right,
but
they didn't do anything. A year and a half backlog on rape kits.
That was before the crime labs combined. So
the
main crime lab was still in Beverly, and that place was a hot mess there.
Yeah.
It was busy. If you think about one of the busiest in the country, right? And
we had some great people down there, but being short of help,
Mr. Motunder.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, and I think people need to understand when you're really busy, you're triaging.
Yeah.
Homicide, they get, first dibs. I was overseeing a station detective and had a theory, but I couldn't work that theory out because I needed to have a suspect. Otherwise, they weren't going to do that. But you're right, John. Had they done all of them, we would have seen. And you remember that Max Factor guy, Andrew Lester?
Yeah.
He was doing that kind of stuff. And that's what I figured we had going on the strip, right? And I just couldn't get the support to do it. And not just from the department, but some other folks weren't happy with me because I was digging into that. They really didn't want me to dig into that because it didn't bode too well on the city that I was working in.
You remember Marina Del Rey?
Yeah.
When they had women that were coming in saying, hey, something's wrong. I woke up, had this date. I woke up all groggy. I'm having, it's like I had sex. I don't remember having sex.
Right.
And these 2 brothers in Marina were GHBing all these women. And apparently GHB, I don't know, you can advise me on that, Danny. I think it only stays in the body for a certain amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
it washes out within 8 or 9 hours. So it's what I actually started doing was if they, first of all, I said, hey, if somebody reports that this is happening, because one of the things that was happening as well, what do you mean you don't remember? And so they were writing them as suspicious circumstances. And I said, no, you have, or they were blowing it off, right? And so I said, no, if somebody comes forward and says this happened to me, we don't say, hey, somebody broke into my house, but I can't find the evidence entry and they took my TV. We don't say, well, do you really have proof other than TV's missing? We don't say that. We write the report. But they're saying, well, you think you had sex, but you can't remember it. And so they were discounting it. And that's the very first thing I said, don't discount it. Write the report. They say feel they were drugged, and you say poisoned. You start C-lining all the sections. Don't ignore the sections. And that was the first thing that was going on. Because when you have cases like this, you have to try and link all the cases, because if it's one suspect or a group of suspects, because what happens is when they get drugged, they only remember certain pieces of it, right? So if you have multiple victims reporting, then you can start putting pieces together, and you can see a pattern, and then you can maybe try to solve that. That was my goal of trying to do that. And let's just say it didn't go over very well because it required public awareness, and people didn't want to do public awareness. It's funny. Ultimately, I got moved, and I found out some very senior folks asked my staff, was he right? And my staff said, yes, he was. So that's another story for another day. Okay, we are about at the halfway mark, Martine. Let's go ahead and do our break now, and we will see. Same bat. Come back. Same bat time. Same bat channel. We'll be back in 2 minutes after break as Johnny B heads off to the men's room. All right, we'll see you guys in a little bit. Martine, you ready?
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. We are going over the movie Clovehitch Killer, which was released in 2018. It is a movie about a serial killer, a coming-of-age movie. His teenage son kind of figures out what's going on, and it actually is it takes inspiration for a lot of the plot from a real serial killer called BTK, Bind, Torture, Kill, Dennis Rader from Wichita, Kansas. And we got a couple of great guests with here, Johnny B and Danny Coon. And I just want to remind you guys to, if you're following us on YouTube, that you got to subscribe on YouTube and like the show. If you're following us on, or you're watching us on Rumble, follow us on Rumble and like the show there. Help us out a little bit and to build our audience so that we kind of move up on the whole algorithm things on both of those platforms. So we've just to remind folks, we have the son who's looking into his dad, and they're in the Bible Belt area, and he's getting a little concerned about it. He's finding out about his dad. He finds in his work shed a diagram of what can only be said as a torture chamber. And he thinks he knows where that's at, and he looks at it, and it's in a crawl space underneath the house, right? And which is, I have to think. So you grew up, Danny. You grew up in Wichita. So I grew up in the Midwest. Did you guys have basements?
Since I left when I was like real little, we probably did. I know my grandparents' house did.
Yeah.
Now, when we moved to California, I lived in the city of Orange, and the houses there. Some of the older houses in Old Town Orange had basements. The house we lived on was built on a not a foundation like a slab foundation. Now that it was built on a regular foundation, so we had crawl spaces underneath.
Yeah, raised foundation. I had an older house here that had it, but back east, most of them do have basements. And Johnny, you grew up back east. Did you have a
Boston?
basement?
Yeah, we had a basement. In fact, my grandfather made his Dago Red, the wine, in the basement.
Really? Yeah. My grandparents was all green and had a lot of Notre Dame motif around.
Damn straight.
Yeah, they were big Notre Dame fans.
Empty for life.
And we had Goebbels beer down there and Schlitz and all the high watermark beers there, So, and we had club soda. Did you ever have those places back east where you go to a shop and you buy your soda at Club Soda, so that's a lot cheaper than the regular soda. So we didn't have Pepsi or Coke. We had to go get club soda from this. It's hard to explain, but you just go to this outlet, and that's all they did was soda, and it was a lot cheaper. And since we had a family of 8, we always had those. But my grandparents always had that stuff too, because they did the same thing. But yeah, so when he goes into the crawl space, you can roll that film, that clip, Martine. He knows where it's at, obviously, because your house, right? And he knows where his dad probably built this thing. In fact, he probably was a kid when his dad built it, right? So he's 16. He probably remembers his dad doing some work in the backyard around when he was 6 or 7, seeing this stuff, and he goes there, and he enters through the backyard through what is a window, and this is another typical thing for the folks back east, because if we're dealing with talking to some folks in California, is if you have a basement, many times you'll have like a window that serves as vent for the basement as well, right? And it's subterranean. I mean, it's below ground level, so they'll have kind of a culvert built out for it. And in this case, instead of the window, the dad has covered it with wood, which is not unusual either, right? And he knows that. The kid knows that. And here he is. He opens that up. He goes down there. He finds his electricity. He finds it's a crawl space. Knowing the construction back then, I'm wondering if he carved out a certain part of the basement to make this his crawl space, because he had a toilet down there. He had other stuff down there, and clearly he's held victims down there in the past. And this is, like I said, this is not unusual for sexual sadists to do this kind of stuff. That one I thought of was a guy named David Roy Parker. I think he was New Mexico, but his was a trailer, and he had bondage stuff, and he tortured, and he was good for a good, I think, 10 murders. But so this is for somebody who's a controlling, organized killer. This is not unusual, because he wants to take his victim to a place where he can control them. And the kid is going through this to find this out. What do you think, John? Shocking one, Dad's not gonna be able to hide anything on the property at these typical neighborhood houses like we have, where it's just one after another in a regular traditional neighborhood like we're talking about, whether it's Wichita, Boston, Detroit, or wherever, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But again, he finds all this stuff, and his dad's got another excuse for it.
Yeah.
You know, he manipulates him and tells him it was his uncle who's in a wheelchair and crippled.
Not only that, he can't. He's not talkative, and so and here you do see him finding trophies. So and now he knows. Okay, he's clearly think Dad's the guy, right? This is Dad is the guy.
Absolutely. Especially when he finds the school teacher that he'd already seen the picture of. You know,
right? Well, he's going through all the driver's license, and so a lot of these victims are the same ones that they did the memorial at, right? So he knows who they are as he goes through at this box, and he knows what this is all about. And he's now what do you do? Okay, John, you're 17, you find out this horrible thing. How do you handle it? I mean, we all have the hindsight of age and wisdom, but you know.
Well, this is true. That's why it's hard to answer. But the kid is kind of wimpy, shy.
I think a little scared.
Not a strong kid at all.
Little scared.
Yeah, scared. You know, he's got so many things going through his mind. He's out of his mind. He's like, he's overwhelmed.
Who do I call? Who do I talk to? What do I do?
He's got nobody to talk to except that redhead.
Yeah. I was thinking at first he'd go to the pastor of his church, since it seemed like they were pretty close. But then, you know, Dad being a ranking member of the church, that could have caused issues also. Now I want to backtrack a little bit.
Go ahead.
Tyler gets into the basement or the crawl space there. And there's one area that's boarded off, and he breaks it open, and the smell comes out, and he goes in there, and there's a dead raccoon. Similar to BTK.
Really?
BTK, when he was growing up, he did animal abuse. And it actually even into when he was a dog catcher, he would abuse animals as a way of getting off, because he was out of commission on his other stuff. And that's what this guy was doing in the movie there. He was still doing into animal stuff. And I worked a couple of stations where you would see kids around the same age, teenage kids, that would do animal abuse and get off on it. And it's like, it's weird. But and then when he gets into the other room where the driver's license, he pulls out the box with the driver's license, and that was similar to BTK. Also, BTK, one of the things he did was, you know, he took his trophies, and he always took a driver's license as a trophy.
Well, the interesting thing is so if you go back to the beginning part of the movie where of course we talked about it, he saved the turtle, and so that's his public persona. And then in his crawl space, in the shed, when he breaks into these women's houses to bind them, torture them, and kill them, that's who he really is. That's what he is, right? That's who he is. And he gets to be that in these crawl spaces. He doesn't get to be that. That's why it's curious that, you know, they'll say the whole, the sexual repression because of religious stuff is, you know, our society pushes back on sexual repression because of faith, right? So, that's bad. And you know, I mean, without moralizing too much, I think sometimes it's this a hedonistic environment, a hedonistic lifestyle at every cost, whatever makes me feel good, is, you know, I see as part of our problem in society, right? But in this case, you can see that it's really repressed in the town, and for me, it would be a curious case study had he been able to indulge some of his fantasies without murdering people in a more permissive town. Would he have gone down this path, right? Would he have had to kill the women to hide who he was? I mean, that's part of it, you know. And as these guys want to hide, they want to repress what they are. They don't want anybody to know, which is why their victims also have to die, right, Danny? I mean, that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, exactly. And you said that anything goes and anything you want. Wasn't that taken out of the movie LA Confidential? It kind of
what was it? Yeah, it was
it kind of plays into that part there.
Yeah, it was the guy that played the high class. He, you know,
Yeah.
All your dreams and fantasies. And who was the one who said that? It was Danny DeVito. I think that was one of his lines.
Danny, it was one of his lines, but it was on a business card of.
It was the business card, and he's the one who said it. Yeah, he said the line in the movie. Yeah.
It was just you said that, it flashed into my mind.
All your fantasies realized, or whatever. And
but you go back, and we did a movie last year, and I can't remember the name of it. And the guy was very detailed on everything he did. He drew drawings. He documented what he did. He was the one that built an underground room out in the cornfield and stuff like that, and was kidnapping.
Oh yes, we did Lovely Bones.
Yeah,
he was also an organized serial killer. Yes,
and that was bizarre because watching this, because that was a very dark movie, and then watching this one, it's like.
Yeah, they were both told from a different perspective. And Lovely Bones, which was a great book. I don't know if you got a chance to read it, but it was told from the perspective of the victim. How would the victim had the ability to communicate, and it was, and again, it was also a very controlled serial killer, and he had to create his own room where he could indulge his fantasy, trap his victim, indulge his fantasies, and kill. But yeah, you're right. Very similar stuff. And
best part of that movie was the end.
The best part was the end when
Stanley Tucci was playing the killer.
Yeah, he's another good actor who
and when they know when he's found out, he leaves, and then he dies in the snow and everything. It was very nice, very apropos.
Yeah, well, a little different. Didn't he try to hit on somebody, or he tried to abduct somebody, and then he slipped on a icy patch and then fell down a cliff, or not quite a cliff, but a pretty deep. I think that's what it was. But he also played a pretty good creep too.
Yeah, he was creepy.
Yeah, it was creepy, right? And it was that was also teenagers figuring it out, right? That was a teenage girl that was figuring it out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was. I guess I don't think they said that was a coming of age movie, but it's very, very, very similar, because it was a sister that figured it out and found the evidence, and ultimately led to his identity as being the serial killer. But that was also another kind of repressed town, same kind of theme. And
you can even take it as far back as Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Another creepy movie, dark, creepy.
Yeah.
Sadistical sex freaks and.
Yeah, that one was. That was weird, because he wanted the skin of his victims. He was creating his own outer.
He wanted to be a female.
He wanted to be a female, and that's and
that was his.
I don't know if you guys have been tracking some of this these murders that are going on. There was a border patrolman up in Vermont who was killed. I don't know if you noticed this. It was 4 people who were part of a group, and they were all transgendered. So men transitioned to women, and one of them killed one of their partners killed the parents, and they're all related. They're all, and 2 of them went to Vermont, and they ended up shooting it out with a couple of border patrol guys, killed one of them, and they were both transgendered, and they were part of a group of militant transgenders. I'm not lying. I swear to God, it's online.
News, yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is crazy how far our society has gone. Where this, and of course, it's getting suppressed by the mainstream media. They don't really want to talk about it because, I did a show on this. I don't know if you guys get a chance. So the Nashville shooter was. She was a female transgender female, right? And then she went to this Christian school. And another area of sexual repression because of faith, and she blamed them for her pain, and she went and killed 3 kids, or was it? I think it was. She killed 6 people, 3 kids, and 3 adults. But she wrote a manifesto. I know this is a little off topic, but I gotta throw this out there for you because of talked about the guys wanting to be girls thing, and the FBI refused to release it. And they said they're not going to release it because they don't want people to take inspiration from it, and they don't want transgender to be targeted, right? And they called them legacy tokens. They did not want to release this manifesto because some people might take inspiration from it, and they called it legacy tokens. Now, I disagreed because it's a school shooting thing, and the Secret Service evaluates school shootings all the time, and then they give the schools and law enforcement some very valuable tips on how to disrupt potential attacks. So if you start hiding information, like, maybe we got this cabal of, the trans kids are being motivated online to do this kinds of stuff, then you're hiding that from, you're pretending like it doesn't exist, and so you don't have a chance to disrupt it. So that's why I disagreed with it. But yeah, I don't know if you guys had heard that. That was crazy. I don't know if you get a chance.
I saw that.
It was kind of like Patriot Day, where the FBI didn't want to release the fact that it was a Muslim.
Yeah,
they're a radicalized Muslim that did the bombs.
I know a lot of people are getting their panties in a bunch on all the stuff going on under Trump. I really am not. I think under Trump, yeah. Well, I mean, what he's doing right now.
He closed down all the taco stands yesterday. It sucked.
Well, I think every now and then you need a disruptor.
Oh yeah.
Every now and then you need it, because
but this time he's doing it right, and he's getting rid of all.
Yeah, well, I guess the way I say it is last time he went along to get along, and they hammered him. This time he's like, you know what? I ain't playing games. I want to do what I want to do. I'm going to dig into this, and he does have the authority to do it. As the president, he has the authority to evaluate what's going on in the executive branch, and the check and balance of Congress is to bring him in or bring his staff in and ask questions. The Democrats are upset because they have no real way of forcing that to happen unless they get some Republicans that go along. But it is not unusual. It is not unusual for a new executive to, particularly at our level, at the local level, to come in and do a deep dive into discretionary spending to find out what's going on and to rein it in, because they want to redirect to their priorities. That's not unusual. But we've never seen it at the federal level quite to this. And so all the folks who expected him to go along to get along, they kind of blew it the last time around. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I tried to play nice with you guys. I'm not playing nice anymore. Of course, he's being attacked, but hey, let's roll to the next one. And I got this murder kit is the next scene. And this is not unusual. This guy is an organized serial killer. You see him lay out his paraphernalia to commit the crimes. And it's interesting, my wife and I watch those, like forensics. We used to watch Forensic File. That's old now, but watch some of this other stuff. But here he is. He's got a murder kit, and as serial killers get more experienced, they put their murder kit out. Now, I don't think I talked about when he was dressing up in a dress and all that other stuff, and the son, that comes up later in the movie, and the girlfriend comes over and interrupts him, and he's got his Polaroid out, and he's doing some weird stuff. We didn't get in that. Dennis Rader did do that stuff as well. But you can see he's got his murder kit. He knows what he's going to do. He knows what he wants to do. Here's the house of the lady that he's going to do. And you see also that he's going to wake her up here. But prior to this, and this is something that Dennis Rader did, is he would prep the house like a day before, a few days before. He would surveil them, prep the house. And so when he was able to break in, it went seamlessly, right? He didn't have to do any, all of that was pre-planned. And you saw that the type of window I'm talking about in the basement, the kind of subterranean windows, partially subterranean, he prepped that. He already was ready to go so that he could just go there quickly, jump in and get into the house. So he pre-planned, he had his murder kit, and this is not unusual for an organized serial killer. And the other thing you see about this, John, in this scene, he's very calm. Now, he hasn't done this in a while. At least that's what's inferred in the movie. But he's very calm at what he's doing.
Yeah.
What do you think? Murder kit,
preparation, murder kit and everything else. But with all the planning he did, they put in their dramatic thing when he went through that window, and he fell into all the clothes baskets and knocked everything over. You would think somebody would wake up and hear that, but no. And he had the rope there with the hitch on it outside.
Yeah.
So he marked what door to go in, what window to go in. But he cased the place. He followed her. They had watched him and his girlfriend, the son and the girlfriend, the redhead, for a while, and they watched him following her out of the grocery store and checking her out all the way out. So he'd been eyeing her for a while.
So this is not just a killer of opportunity, but a killer that targets his victims, which is exactly what Dennis Rader did, right? I think there was he if I remember his story right, there was one victim he wanted to get. I want to say it, and she never came home, and he left her a note. He wrote a poem. The one that got away kind of left her a note, you know, I had a surprise for you or something like that. So, because he would surveil them, he'd figure out what they do during the day, when they're going to be home, and with the expectation that all this stuff would happen. And apparently she got distracted by some kind of business thing that she had to do, and she never made it home. And he gave up on her because she wasn't predictable enough, I guess. That's probably what it was. But yeah, this is straight out of Dennis Rader, BTK. And what do you think, Danny? He's got his murder bag, his murder kit, and he's very organized, and he's very calm, which is unsettling.
Similar to BTK. BTK worked for ADT, and he worked for other companies where he was able to, seeing him out in the field and doing different things that would not be uncommon, you know, to see someone walk up to a house with an ADT uniform on, at an ADT truck. And in this instance, our bad guy, he was a handyman, drove a truck with a rack on it and everything like that. And when he went to that house, he was acting as a handyman. He had his wheelbarrow, he had his tools, and he just kind of went back in the backyard like he belonged there, so the neighbors wouldn't think anything different.
No.
And then did his thing. He had all of his tools, everything he needed for whatever handiwork he was going to do, and then he had all of his tools for the murder he was going to do.
Right. So well practiced, though. Obviously, he's not done this well. Okay, let's talk about the invasion. You're at home sleeping, and somebody invades. I mean, obviously this is a gal, but first of all, the invasion of your property, even if you're not home, you find out somebody burgled your house. A lot of people are shocked. They're in fear. And you know, so you're wondering what's this victim thinking, right? You know, she wants to survive, but she's actually, this is her safe space, and it's not anymore, right, John? So what do you know, what's she going through here?
Oh, she's freaking out. You know, she's scared to death. Even if she didn't even knew about the other killings, it's been 10 years. But all of a sudden, you know, you're waking from a dead sleep and you got a masked guy over you. Oh, you know, she'd have shit her pants.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's talking about his dad to the victim here. My dad used to say this, but he was a SOB, you know, and obviously there's a lot of these, there's all this craziness in their background, these serial killers when they do this. But, and here she, of course, she's in pain, which is something that he absolutely enjoys. So Danny, same thing. Somebody invades, you know, I mean, hot prowl burglars, you know, that the scary thing is, you know, a lot of these crooks, they want to go in when nobody's there, but this is the guy that wants to go in when somebody's there, because that's part of the excitement, whether it's a hot prowl burglar or this guy who actually wants to go and find his victim because he wants to torture her, right?
Unfortunately, back in 2010, my wife and our house was burglarized up in LA. And we weren't at home at the time, but even being a cop for, at that time, was 28, 29 years, you still feel violated. You still, and we had, on top of us, it was a lot of anger because we wanted to find out who the SOB that did it was. Now, we kind of got some clues, and that person went to jail on a different charge, and he was taken care of by friends of friends. But
any fingerprints left behind or no?
LAPD did a crappy job. They came in and just threw fingerprint dust all over the place, and it took them 3 or 4 days to get there. And I was so pissed. I was telling the handling detective, you know, I'm going to get some real fingerprint people out here, and I'm going to get some real detectives to come and handle this case, because I was a detective at Compton at the time.
How to win and influence friends. I'm going to get some real detectives out here.
Oh, well, you know, I don't have number 2 in blue. I don't have a lot of looking for. So.
Neither do I. I love them more than FBI, but I don't love the FBI at all.
Yeah, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The hot prowl burgs, when I was working up in Antelope Valley, I worked earlies, and there was probably one summer of all, it was just almost every night you're getting a hot Prauberg. And you just, if someone came into my house and I was dead asleep in the living room and like she was, first of all, I'd probably be awakened already. But, if I was that thing, first you say it and then you do it. And then I'm going to go change my drawers because, but like my wife said last night as we're watching it, now we don't sit in our living room with guns. Guns are in the bedroom. So if you were in the bedroom and you come in, you're going to get shot. But like my wife said last night, and she's got these claws, she'll just scratch your eyes out. She'll fight. She will fight to her death to keep from being violated by anybody. And I agree with her. We come from different personalities from what was depicted in, like, we're probably all the same. We're going to fight someone instead of sit there and succumb to being a victim.
Yeah, of course we're men, so right. So and this kind of killer will avoid. He did kill a father, but you do what I'm going to say, I'm going to hurt your family. I think he got the kids first, and then dad came home.
Yeah, they were collateral damage on BTK.
Yeah, they were collateral damage, and but they're going to avoid places like ours. They're going to say, "Oh, that guy's home all the time." They're going to be looking for somewhere else, right? They're going to be looking for a weaker candidate. The hot Praubergs, it was we had a lot of stuff went on in West Hollywood because we had so many meth hypes too, right? And so they were up at night and they were doing their business at night. And if somebody, sometimes you had those, the slotted windows, and the old design, you could just kind of take those out. Yeah, they were like the doorway for burglars, right? And we had those all over Hollywood, right? And so people would break in and do that. But it became pretty clear that was because a lot of your burglars, they wait till everybody goes to work. That's what they want. They don't want you there. But the hot prop burglars, that part of it is violating you while you're in the house. That's important.
We all worked when the Night Stalker was around. And
exactly.
The fear and all the stuff that came up with that.
And he started out, it was more hot Praubergs was what he was doing. And then he moved into, he graduated into sexual assault and murder. And he would go in right away and with a gun and kill the man. He wasn't afraid of doing a couple, and then raping the women and I think in one case the boy, in these cases. So, but he started out as a hot Prauberger, and so you can see that transgression, because it was more and more exciting for him, and I think he was kind of a organized, controlled killer as well.
Yeah, he'd tie up and do, but he'd handcuff some people. I think he tied up a couple of girls and.
Yeah.
Before he murdered him, and it's just another sicko.
Yeah, and I think he was looking for. I don't recall that he was doing a lot of surveillance, but he was looking for opportunities, and a lot of that, people who didn't have air conditioning, they would leave their windows open. And
that summer was a warm summer, and you're right. Air conditioning wasn't as common as it is today, and people would sleep with their doors, not their doors, but with their windows open. And but he terrorized. Not only just a small part of LA, he terrorized like 3 counties, and then he decided, I'm going to go to San Francisco and terrorize them too.
Yeah, we got to tell that story, that stupid politician who's now dead, Dianne Feinstein. So I got to tell the story, right? Because I was in patrol school when that was going on, and so Gil Carrillo, the homicide guy who was working that case, came in and briefed us on the case and said, "This is what you guys need to look for, right?" And one of the things that we were told about that wasn't released to the public was the shoe, or it hadn't been. But he told the story. He said, we hadn't released the shoe, the type of shoe, to the public because we wanted to use it to link him to the different crimes. And they shared it with San Francisco PD. Dianne Feinstein was the mayor of San Francisco, and she decided to release it. And of course, he promptly threw the gun that he had and the shoes off the Golden Gate Bridge, which he acknowledged later, and destroyed, because she wanted to look like, because there was fear, and she wanted the look at, I'm in charge, this is what we're looking for, even though they told her this is not for public release. She released it. So from that day forward, as far as I'm concerned, she was scum because she was told not to do something. She did it anyways. And it was more about politics than keeping the community safe. And of course, we saw her act that way when she was in the Senate with the Kavanaugh hearing and other stuff. This is a person who had zero morals and zero sense of right and wrong. It was all about her and not about the public. And I thought, that's despicable. Why would you do something like that? And it was so she can look like she was, so she can get a little political mileage out of the. I don't know if you guys had ever heard that story, but that's exactly what Gil Carrillo, he told it to all of us when I was at patrol school as we were heading out to patrol. And I don't think he lasted much longer out there in the field. I was in patrol school in '85. I think they caught him that summer.
Yeah, they caught him in the summer. What ticks me off is I was working earlys at East LA at the time. I got off work 2 hours before they caught him in East LA.
Darn. You would have liked to have been the guy there putting the hooks on him, huh?
Yeah, it's funny because it was Andy Ramirez arrested.
I didn't know
Richard
that.
Ramirez.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think
That's funny.
I think Andy retired as a captain or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think he
was the one that arrested him.
West Hollywood captain. He ended up retiring as a captain at West Hollywood. I think I ended up working adjacent to him in one of my assignments in custody. All right, let's get into tenure. So he did do a 10-year break, and according to the movie, he also had 19 driver's licenses. So I think when you looked at the victims there, I want to say there was about 8 or 10 victims in that memorial. But when he was going through his trophy kit, the son was going through the trophy kit, there was 19 driver's licenses in there, which would indicate, of course, there's 19 victims. And here he is. He's now in the lady's house, and he's taking pictures of her as he's torturing her. And it kind of flashbacks, right? It shows one of the things we weren't aware about was when the girl went into the house to disrupt the dad when he was getting in his dresses and stuff, and looking for his softer side, I guess, in his pumps. The son was allegedly sent off to leadership camp for the Boy Scouts, but instead he stayed in town with her, and he had snuck into the house to try and get evidence, right, to find out what was actually going on. And his dad could you imagine that? You're this 16, 17-year-old kid, and your dad is dressing up in dress, he's in pumps, and and they did add a lot of drama to this with that scene, I think, because he's hiding under the bed. Dad doesn't see him, and he calls his friend, his girlfriend, to help him out, and that's when she knocks on the door. But they realize there's something sick about Dad, right? And this is when they're going to follow him, and they follow him all over the place. And this is their little spot that they talk and work out their plans as they follow his dad and go after his dad. And they know that he's gonna the address that he's casing, the woman that he's casing. They know that he's a sick puppy, best way I could say it. He's got rabies, I guess. And now they're following him, and you see that they go back to that in the movie, and now they're on him, and they're going to disrupt him. I don't think they probably didn't think after the fact. What happens if we find him, right? So what do you think of this, Johnny B?
Well, I was confused when all of a sudden he's looking at the Polaroid, and the kid walks in with a rifle. I'm like, did I fall asleep and miss something? Right. I rolled it back and watched it. Then they showed what really happened, how they went in there. But at first I was like, what the,
they're using his phone. So somehow they managed to track his phone so they can see where Dad's going. Right. And then son knows the pattern, right? And they're talking about it. Oh, look, he's moving. Oh no, he's just doing this. He's doing that. And so they're convinced. Of course, she wants him to go in and look at the scene. He doesn't want to go in. So she gives him a kiss. I thought that was, but they're now actually focused on this guy. Now it's been 10 years from his last killing till now. And you can see when he's dressing up in his dresses, he wasn't getting the excitement that he wanted. We saw the scene with his wife. He couldn't perform with her. And he needs to do this for himself sexually, Danny, right? So he lives in this repressed town, and he's going to do this, and he's going to start going back to killing. he wants the excitement of it all, right? Which is part of what these guys are all about.
This part was closer. This scene was closer to the end, but earlier, Dad had come in to Tyler and says, "Hey, let's go camping. You know, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. Let's go camping." They go camping, and Dad kind of puts out there that he blames on everything on Uncle Carl, who was supposedly in a bad car accident and was an invalid, and that's why there hasn't been any murders for 10 years. And I was like, John, is I'm watching this movie and it comes out with a gun. I'm going, what the hell's going on? And so then I realized when they played it again, they played it in two different perspectives. One is the perspective of the father, and one is the protective perspective of the son and the girl. And what kind of got me also was the kids, they all had flip phones and they were texting back and forth like.
Did we lose you, Danny? I think we lost you. John, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, it just froze all of a sudden with Danny.
There, we're back.
Yeah, you're back. Okay. They had flip phones, Danny?
Yeah, they had flip phones, and he texted her, "Help." And so she goes up. That's when she went up to the door and knocked on the door, and he stripped that out of all of his other stuff and put on real clothes real quick. And then she wanders into the living room, and she sees where he had put an eye bolt up in the ceiling, and she sees the Polaroid camera, and at the same time he's kind of kicking a Polaroid of himself underneath the couch. And Tyler, he kind of comes downstairs and he's in another room watching what's going on, and he takes a picture of the girl, and she's blowing on the picture. He's going to blow on the picture to help it develop real quick, because remember the old Polaroids were a lot of fun. And that's when he calls her, and she plays off, "Oh, hey, Dad. Okay, I'm on my way. I'll be there in a minute." Kind of thing, to get out of the house.
Saved her life, because I think Daddy would have done her.
I agree. I think that it definitely just saved the life.
Yeah. Well, he gets interrupted, and now she knows that he's got his Polaroid thing. He's suspecting that his son knows something, and this is his girlfriend, allegedly his girlfriend. So he thinks if his son knows, then he's probably sharing with his first true love, I guess. And
do you remember the line when Tyler was taking her back home after dinner, and she goes, "Pull over," and he pulls the truck over, and they talk for a couple of seconds, and then she puts her seatbelt on, looks at him, and says, "What did you think we were going to do? Make out?"
Yeah.
Well,
he was hopeful, but he's a normal kid, right? He's not going to tie her up and do it. So.
Yeah, there were some pretty good one-liners. You said one earlier. Come out of the closet.
Well, this is the story. So they go in this house, and she explains this is where her mom was killed, right? She explains her mom died, and she thinks that it was the CLOVEHITCH killer. And so now Crystal Harper. So now he's the son's getting the whole story, and he understands why she's so interested in this case. I mean, she's lived with a lady that wrote a book about it, but she's interested because this took her mom away, right? This is a person who took her mom away, and that's why she's down for the cause, so to speak. And she can't remember. She was little, so she can't remember everything. She just remembers the dad saying, "Your mom went away." Right? Your mom went away. And she doesn't remember that. She remembers some noise, some screaming, some yelling when she was a little girl. And that did happen with BTK. BTK did kill moms with the little kids. And in fact, one of his victims, he said, "You cooperate, otherwise I'll kill her." Right. And so the little girl survived. So this is obviously consistent with the real life story as well. But for him, I think for the boy here, Tyler, it kind of explains why she's so interested in the case. And of course, it's now personal for her. It's very personal for her. But the interesting thing is Tyler he doesn't believe his dad, I think, on the whole brother thing. He does confront his dad on the whole brother thing. And he goes along with him. He makes his dad burn all the trophies, right? which obviously that when he finally is convinced he's the killer, that kind of narrows his pathway. Now they got to follow him to figure out what's going on so that they can take him down, and which leads to the tail end of the movie here. But let's go prepping for murder, and this is I think we already talked a little bit about this, but we see him doing his wheelbarrow, going to the victim's house. So there is some flashback stuff. It is a little confusing, but they are following. At first it took me a little while to figure out, well, how do they know where he's going? And they're using somehow Find My Phone kind of app to figure this out, because I think the dad had more of an advanced phone than the kids' flip phones, but they were able
his looked like a smartphone.
Yeah, and they had another smartphone they were using to follow him. They don't explain all this stuff, but this is all, obviously TV homicide solving, or movie tips, movie hints, right? And they're doing this stuff, and they're able to follow him and see where he's going. They see the knot tied on the back of the house. I think they also check the window and realize it's probably going to go down from there. And she looks in the house and she says, "Hey, listen, look, those are the pictures of the girl or the lady he was following at the grocery store." So they know this is his target, right? So what do you think, John? Prepping for murder, absolutely. He's doing all this stuff. Organized serial killer. This is not even, if you think of the Night Stalker as an organized serial killer, it was partly organized, but also partly spur of the moment, because he didn't always know what he was getting when he went into the houses. He knew what he was going to do. He knew how to do it in a covert way. He knew how he was going to enter the house. He had weapons. He'd planned out, if there's a guy there, he'll kill the guy and then tie up the woman, do what he wants. So that part of it was organized. But in this case, it's organized from A to Z, as Danny talked about in the movie Lovely Bones. Very similar stuff. Planned out, very methodical, weeks in preparation, which is consistent with BTK. And that's what you see in Dylan McDermott's character. That's what you see with him, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think that it was surprising when they looked at the pictures, realized, oh, this is the lady he's following. So they knew just then. Plus, he had that knot on the outside, so they knew that this was the place. But what was funny, what was cute, a little humor that they put in is where they're both watching the house, and he's bringing out the wheelbarrow and all that. She goes into the house, he stays in the bush, and here comes some lady walking the dog. He's like, "Hi,"
Yeah, the dog barked.
Yeah,
and the lady doesn't call the police, right?
Exactly.
So I want to go back to the brother for a minute here, Danny. Your thoughts, because I this is what I thought. I wouldn't be surprised if somehow the brother figured out what was going on and somehow met with an unfortunate accident. I just couldn't come away with. He blames his brother, which is pretty convenient. But I'm curious if his brother knew. Maybe his brother was a participant. Who knows?
I thought it was a dual thing. They were both doing it.
And the dual thing's a possibility. I'm with you, Pat. Because the theme went is that he became an invalid, became quadriplegic and non-communicable due to a car accident. And then Dad says, "Oh, he was doing all this stuff and he tried to kill himself, and it didn't. This is how he turned out." And that was 10 years ago, and it just happened to be the 10 years. I'm thinking to myself, no, I think Dad probably did something to him.
Yeah, maybe the brother figured it out and was going to turn him in, and maybe Dad was trying to kill him, and he ended up being non-communicative and can't talk and just a vegetable. And of course, they drag him to church. Could you imagine if you are, if you can think and you know what's going on, but you can't talk and you can't do anything, and you're going to church with the guy who's a killer? But I thought there was a story that wasn't told there that we really didn't know about with the brother.
Yeah, that's a story, and that's a sequel.
That's a sequel. Yep. If one comes. So here we are showing the scene. So he goes in, our bad guy goes in, Dylan McDermott is going in, and he's got the woman hostage. And it's interesting because you hear it from two different perspectives, right? The scene. First, the dad, and you hear the woman yelping, making her sounds after he puts the plastic bag on her. But then you also hear it from our other characters, the son the girlfriend as they're in the other room when that starts, right? So it's kind of interesting how the filmmaker did that. And he, of course, brings his rifle. And this is kind of one of those things, what do you do, right? I mean, you got a rifle, you got it on your dad, and he starts going into all the little trigger points that he knows to do with his son. And he's doing all of those things, and he's calling back memories from his childhood to gain control over this situation and over his son. But he's also a guy that's going to survive. And you see this, later on in this scene. So John, you pull the gun on Dad, who's a serial killer. And, I mean, this is the part where we talk about you didn't like the ending. Obviously, I think if I'm her, I've already called the police a long time ago.
Well, yeah, he killed her mother. So she's very vested in either killing him or putting him in jail. And then, of course, the kid, he's very weak. His mind's spinning, and Daddy starts talking him down, and he doesn't shoot Daddy because how can you shoot your own dad? But I mean, there's so much in his head. Then he gets the rifle taken away from him, the fight's on. But then the girl finally knocks him out and wants to call, and he says, no. He doesn't want to embarrass the family, because they're going to have to live.
This is almost the part's unbelievable, because there is a point in time where she goes from, it's not your dad, to, oh, it's your dad. Right?
Exactly.
And that's the part where,
don't do this,
you can see where he's
in his mind, oh, we live in this Bible Belt, and Mom and, we're all going to be just chastised. He's very weak, the kid.
Well, he doesn't want to believe it. And I guess I could understand that a little bit in the plot.
I can understand it.
He still doesn't want to believe it, even though the evidence is, it's right there in front of him. He doesn't want to believe it. But she, this is the part where it becomes unbelievable. She believes it now. Why aren't I making a phone call? Yeah. Of course, they're thinking they need more evidence, but.
Oh God, they got plenty of evidence, but especially with the woman right there. But then the girlfriend goes to call, and she has 911, and he stops her. And
right. Well, this is after they should have been calling from the outside. I mean, they got him tracked. He's in the house. They saw him break in. This is the perfect time to call. You got your evidence, right? Perfect.
Yep. But
this is where the plot kind of.
I don't believe her stopping.
Yeah, this is where I think the storyline kind of goes into, well, part of it's already been unbelievable, but the teenagers are solving the serial killer crime that nobody else can solve. I mean, but then it goes off the rails because they have to go in and confront him. But here he's doing the manipulation on him, Danny. He's doing the manipulation and he gives up the gun, and you're like, don't do that. Don't do that.
My wife and I were going to shoot him. But he never did. And I'm in the same thought process as you. They would have called the cops. They should have called the cops before they went in there.
Oh yeah.
But I thought he was going to toughen up when the girlfriend went for the 2-inch 38. I was thinking after she got slammed into the wall and knocked out, I was thinking maybe he'll grow a pair and do something. But he kept saying, "You have to turn yourself in. You have to turn yourself in." He didn't have the animal instinct to take out a threat. I mean, it looked like he was carrying a .22 rifle anyway. Yeah. So if you shoot him in the big toe, it'll kill his knee. But
yeah.
But what is Dylan McDermott doing? Turns the rifle on his son and he pulls the trigger.
And it was empty. Yeah.
And it was empty. Yes. So he has now. Son is like, what the hell is
you were going to kill me.
You were going to kill me. I couldn't kill you, but you were going to kill me. And then the fight's on, and you can see he was getting choked out. Yeah. He was getting choked out, and his girlfriend comes to enough to smash him on the head. And she gives him a few more thumps for this one's for Mom, and this is for the lady down the street, and here's another one for that lady. She
that's why I just don't, the writers, for her to not call at least then and let it go, that's just unbelievable.
Yeah, this is the part where it really went off the rails.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of, it did make it interesting because, I guess it does open it up for, a sequel, Clovehitch 2, whatever. Hey, you gotta do that double tap just to be on the safe side. Yeah. Well, I thought, okay, he's out, typical. Oh, he's out, but no, she's a couple more thumps for the good of the cause there on Mr. Dylan McDermott there, the serial killer. But yeah, they don't call, right? And so that kind of leaves, you got another almost 10 minutes of movie to figure out, well, what the hell's going on, and the next thing you see is he's a missing person. So we might as well roll that scene, Martine. He's a missing person, and you see the missing person flyer, and nobody knows what happens. And the interesting thing is, mom gets right into the routine of taking care of the kids. And I thought to myself, wow, he leaves, and I don't think it bothered mom at all that he was gone. To be honest with you, she goes right in and, all right, check out La Grielle. Okay, we'll do that, Tom. Let's see. Serial killer in France 2 years ago. DNA cracked it. He was well-respected gendarme. I think that's the German police, right? Gendarme. Now retired, was living in a Cité d'Azur. Is that 11 victims? Wow. Yeah, we'll check it out. So I don't know, Tom, what do you think of the movie? Good movie, interesting movie. It does lay out well, I don't know what. So here he is. So he's gone, and I don't see mom is all upset, and this is what obviously the son wanted, and he eventually talks to the girlfriend about this is what you wanted, and it is what he wanted, and eventually they do find the body, and the police find it as I think it's a suicide. It is curious to me.
Did they find the body?
Yeah, they did. They did eventually find the body. Yeah.
Oh, all I saw was he was in a tent tied up, and his son
they showed him.
I didn't see anything after that.
Yeah, the kids had drug him out into the boonies, and then they had him tied up and or have him in this thing. And the only thing you can speculate, they made it look like a shooting accident, which is
like he was cleaning his gun. So he was out camping. He took off camping, and he was out cleaning his gun.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that part. I missed it.
They didn't really. You had to kind of figure it out. That's how they played it off. They didn't actually show him holding the gun. They just showed him sitting there with a scared look on his face. And then the mom goes to Tyler. She said something to the effect of, the cops called for you, but I don't want them to talk to you. And they says it doesn't look like he was cleaning his gun, which kind of alludes to probably a suicide type thing.
Yeah, that was the path they were going, because I think they went to the pastor or something like that, and so and that's a big deal. Committing suicide in the Bible, that's a no-no, right? For faith, and
that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. And the interesting thing is you don't really hear the cop's perspective here, but you'd have to think that they're looking into this guy now that he's committed suicide. Why did he commit suicide? And that, because we kind of know, okay, he's got blunt force trauma to the head because she gave him, 30 whacks. And even if he does put the barrel in his mouth, there's still going to be blunt. That's inconsistent with a bullet wound, right? So I think a lot of things are unsaid here. And here they talk about what a wonderful man he is. Even the kid who she accused of, hey, well, just come out of the closet, dude. He's there saying wonderful things. But and the son, he gives the final words about his dad. And it's funny, he doesn't really praise him. He just says, Dad, wherever you are, I love you. He doesn't, you wouldn't say it's a glowing praise. He was this, he was this, he was this, but he was my dad, right? And they leave it at that. So I don't know. I agree with you. I didn't particularly like the ending. I would have liked him getting taken down. I think just calling and having the police come and take him down and solve the crime. And of course, that would have led to, here's his widow, that would have led to the family being ostracized. And that did kind of happen a little bit with BTK family. That did happen, They get ostracized.
After he pled guilty, the wife, BTK's wife, Dan Strader's wife, got an emergency divorce, like an overnight divorce type of thing to kind of shade away or fade away from his. And it would have been nice he had to have a BTK type of ending where he gets caught legitimately, and then do what BTK did was tell everything what happened in his allocation, and then have a TV show on A&E or something like that where they did his interview for 3 times, or what he had 3 days of BTK interviews on. I think it was A&E or something, one of the crime shows.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. I did when he was in court. I remember it coming up, BTA allocutes, and I watched that, So this would have been years ago, and I thought, man, he's just like, well, this is how I made my spaghetti, and you use a little bit of noodles. It's like this was not a big deal to him.
Yeah,
and I mean, I didn't see any emotion, any concern for the victims, although I think he might have said, I'm sorry, but he clearly, and I think he enjoyed the allocution as much, you know what I mean? and
yeah, it's notoriety for him.
Yeah, he'll always be BTK.
It would have been nice to end it something similar to that, instead of just the thought that he may have committed suicide, and then just like you said, Pat, there's no other looking into the case. With the head injury, with these injuries, nothing.
Yeah,
that's why I think if it had made money, they would have made a sequel to it with the kid either being a serial killer and or a what do you call it? A guy that does vengeance.
Vigilante.
Vengeance.
Yeah, vigilante.
This was
I could see that happening, but or even a prequel where they show the father and his brother, then you get the whole story about how they did.
That would have been good too. This took place in small town Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the I can't remember what city they said it would be, but it was portrayed to be a small town in Kentucky. So that gives you some idea on the thought process of maybe the cops. But if that happened today, it would be totally different, because it'd all be tweakers.
Yes. Oh, yeah. As Martine said, the kid's friend would have been the serial killer, and the kid would have been the vigilante.
Yeah.
See, what'd you say? BTK was a bad murdering kid, that evil and a childish mind, and a child. Well, you know what? Obviously, these guys who do this kind of stuff are stunted in their development in a lot of ways, their emotional development in a lot of ways, and their hedonistic pleasures are more important than anything else. He kind of just in the one scene where he's got the woman tied up and he says, this is what my dad always used to say, but he was an SOB, and a lot of these, they are the products of controlling parents and abusive parents. It's interesting. I mean, we have this whole P. Diddy thing going on. Apparently his mom was, a pretty dicey person. It's inferred maybe that she had customers over, so to speak, and that kind of stuff, and that was something that he saw in his childhood, right? And I did a few shows on him. That guy is a freaky guy, freak offs. I mean, just the control, drugging both men and women, using his power to force them to have sex with him.
And with others.
Yeah, and with others, yeah.
And he videoed it all. Yeah, we'll see if that ever comes out.
Yeah, apparently he had a well, he could have freak offs in prison. I'm sure he could find a lot of customers, but he apparently he couldn't get out for the holidays, so he had a meltdown. It's like, I guess when you're a billionaire and you're put in prison and suddenly nobody cares who you are, but yeah, he sounds like he had. I don't want to make any excuses for the guy, because I think he's exactly where he needs to be, and he needs to be there for the rest of his life. I'm just saying that he had some drama in his childhood that may have given him a skewed sense of sexuality. It's just a weird guy. So hey, good movie. You get thumbs up, thumbs down, and watch it again. Did your wife like it, Danny?
She thought it was all right. I mean, she thought it was all freaky too. So.
Yeah, it was. Well, it's dark
and kind of boring.
It was a little slow.
because it started real slow.
Yeah, it did drag, and I don't know, how do you make this a little faster when you want to get all that information in there? And I agree, but they're telling a story about a serial killer, and you kind of got to throw all that stuff in there.
Yeah.
They tried to fill up a black hole by controlling and murdering. Yeah, a black hole in themselves. Yes, I would agree with that, Tom. Same thing. A little slow, but still a good, thought-provoking movie, John.
Yeah, a little slow. I didn't like the ending at all. He should have been arrested, and they should have put everything out, and everybody should have seen all the pictures and everything. But that's Hollywood.
Or a big shootout like Patriots Day at the end,
Well, yeah, that water.
Everybody likes shootouts.
That was a true story, though. That's an amazing thing. We are at the end of our show, guys. Thanks for joining me here today. And we can't do all the best movies. Sometimes we got to do ones that are a little different, which we just did. And so was Lovely Bones when I did that, although it was much better, I think. Anyways, thank you for
a great movie.
Thanks for joining me. Stick around for a quick debrief. Martine, I think we are at the end of the show. You can take it away.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Thank you.